Good afternoon and welcome to the latest edition of Money Matters. My name is Dan White. I'm going to be the host of your show this afternoon. I'm also president and CEO of Dan White and Associates. We are a retirement planning firm. We're headquartered in Glen Mills, Pennsylvania, and we also have a satellite office down in Middletown, Delaware. And we've got a great show for you today. We've got a guest, Monty Powell from Song Sessions, a singer-songwriter out of Nashville. So we're going to find out a lot about the music industry down in the Nashville area. Before we do get started, though, a couple questions that arise in my industry in, let's say, the last 3 to 4 weeks that have cropped up, and I just wanted to share them with you. I mean, the first thing, unless you've been sleeping in a cave, you know that the last couple weeks have been kind of tense as our government was threatening to default. We had the debt ceiling debate that was getting kicked back and forth for about 4 to 6 weeks, and this is something that happens probably every 9 months to 2 years. I mean, it seems like we go back and forth about the debt limit, and basically the political parties. I mean, we know we have a lot of they don't seem to agree on anything. So when you have different parties representing the House and the Senate, it tends to become a game of political football. What happens is the party that's not in power tries to hold the party in power hostage and say, we're not going to vote to increase the debt limit. You're going to default. You're going to look like idiots unless we get this. And of course, the party in power is always saying, well, no, we're not going to give you that. You better vote to increase this. They always get it done, because if they did not, the country would be in shambles. Can you imagine if government employees didn't get paid, if Social Security checks weren't sent out, if the military was not getting paid? You would have complete chaos in this country. So they didn't even raise it. They suspended it for 2 years. Until January of 2025, which coincidentally is right after the next presidential election. So good news, life goes on. They reached an agreement, and they basically have an unlimited checkbook at this point until January of 2025. The second thing that I came across this weekend, which I kind of scoffed at, was I was reading the Wall Street Journal, and it says, we're in a new bull market. And I don't know if it feels that way to you, but I hate the term when they come out with that. We're in a bull market. We're in a bear market. The classic definition of a bull market is when we've gone through a downturn and we hit a bottom, and now we come up 20% from the bottom. And the classic definition of a bear market is you hit a high, which we did in January of 2022. We hit an all-time high, and then the Fed started raising interest rates. The market started to drop, and in October, in fact, October the 12th, we think we hit the bottom, and now we're up 20% from that bottom. So everybody's saying, singing hosannas, we're in a new bull market. But one thing I would caution you about, if you go back into the dot-com bubble, let's say 2000 to 2002, the NASDAQ fell over 80%. Over 3 years. And when you really explore that, during that drop that the NASDAQ had of over 80% in 3 years, they had 4 rallies in that 3-year time period where the NASDAQ rose between 25 and 44%. And then it would continue to drop. And at the end of the 3 years, it was down over 80%. So a word of caution with this bull market. We might not be out of the woods yet. This could be a sneaky kind of bull rally in the midst of a bear market. We could still go back down. Now, the Fed paused interest rates today. It remains to be seen whether that's a good move or a bad move, but don't get your hopes up that we're out of the woods just yet. The other thing I want to point out about this bull market, it's a very narrow rally. This is not a broad rally at all. In fact, the press is calling it the Magnificent Seven. There's 7 companies out there that account for all the gains in the S&P this year. We're talking Apple, Microsoft, Google or Alphabet, Amazon, NVIDIA, Meta, which used to be Facebook, and Tesla. These 7 stocks are up 70% year to date, and they account for all the gains. The rest of the S&P is down 0.1%. And, when you look at the S&P, it is a weighted market index, meaning the largest companies, like Apple's the largest company out there, they get a much higher weight in the S&P. So they count the gains of those companies more. So if you look at the S&P weighted by market cap, year to date, it was up 9.7, almost 10%. But the S&P equal, if you took every company and you made them equal weight, then the S&P would actually be down 0.67 for the year. So again, I don't want to say we're out of the woods yet, because we're not seeing a lot of companies with gains. We're seeing 7 companies really that make up all the gains in the S&P 500. And then the last thing I want to mention today is interest rates we know are up. And we've coined this phrase, and we're seeing that a lot in our business. Have you refinanced your retirement? I mean, think about it. When rates drop, you refinance your mortgage. Well, now rates are up. And my question to our clients is, have you refinanced your retirement? What does that mean? Well, a lot of people, when they retire, they rely on guaranteed income sources such as annuities. And if you bought an annuity 2 years, anywhere from 2 years to 5 or 6 years ago, you bought in a very low interest rate environment. And now that interest rates have skyrocketed, the products that are available today are head and shoulders above the products of even 2 years ago. So what we're doing with our book of business, we're looking at older annuity contracts between 2 and 6 years. And what we're finding is it usually makes sense, even if you have to pay a penalty to get out of the old contract into the new contract. It's going to pay you more income, oftentimes within a year, but over 3 or 4 years, it's going to really skyrocket your income. So if you're one of those folks that bought some products a couple of years ago in a low interest rate environment, and you're looking to see, hey, how can I refinance my retirement? That's something you definitely ought to look at and consider. So there are the 3 points that I wanted to bring up today from the standpoint of Dan White and Associates. And I think we have a question out there from one of our listeners. Anita Rogers from Philadelphia wrote in. She wanted to know what ESG stocks or funds are. And this is kind of an interesting thing too. ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance. It's the umbrella term used to describe various investing approaches that focus on social, environmental, or corporate governance factors rather than solely what is my risk and what is my return. And you can look at this like the sin stocks. If one ESG approach is called values-based investing. And this approach appeals most strongly to investors who care about avoiding investments in companies that don't align with their values. So let's say you don't think alcohol is good for anybody. You might not buy Anheuser-Busch. Or you don't think smoking is good. You might not buy Philip Morris. Or you're against the oil companies. So you might not buy Chevron or Mobile or any of those types of companies. So that's the basic premise behind ESG. Should you invest for your conscience, your politics, or your moral values, or should you invest for your needs and your net worth? It might be a credible idea, and actual superior performance might make you lean that way, but unfortunately, ESG has kind of been an underperformer, and it hasn't really panned out for people. So, I mean, I get it. Some people have high values, and they don't want to invest in things that they think, like take the pharmaceutical companies, for example, and the opioid crisis. You might not want to invest in that company, but sometimes those companies really give you great returns. So it's a personal decision that people have to make. And if you've got a question for Money Matters, here's how you can forward that to us, and we will get it answered on the air.
You can have your questions answered on Money Matters. Please go to our website, money-matterstv.com. On our homepage, click on the banner on the right that says, Send us your questions. While you're on our website, you can find information about our host and guests, as well as show notes and links about this show and past shows. Money Matters is also available as a podcast on iTunes and Stitcher, so you can listen to Money Matters while you're on the go. That website address, again, is money, MONEY, -matters, MATTERS, TV.com.
Thank you. So it is my great pleasure now to bring onto the show Monty Powell from Song Sessions. Monty is a singer songwriter headquartered down in the Nashville, the music capital of the world, as they say, down there in Nashville, Tennessee. Welcome to the show, Monty.
So great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm gonna love the accent for the next 15 minutes as well. So. But I was down Nashville about a year ago, and there's so many. Every place down there, it seems like, plays music, and there's all kinds of musicians trying to make their mark and that kind of thing. And lots of people don't understand how these, it's kind of the starving artist industry, but how musical artists and songwriters actually do get paid. What are the major lanes of income for the people in your space in the music industry?
Well, the major lanes that we're generally chasing on the artistic side of things are live performance and touring, which frankly is in some ways the best return that an artist has. Streaming services have now started to catch up a little bit. They have been extremely behind sort of the wave of how some other digital content has been paid on the music side. But we're slowly but surely figuring out record labels versus Spotify and some of those things. So on the artistic side, it's mostly going to be live performance and touring, and then streaming income for plays that you get of your music. I'm not really an artist per se, more of a songwriter and a producer. And so my income mostly comes from royalties on the publishing side of the coin, or the IP side, the intellectual property side. And we have performance rights organizations, the three main ones, BMI, ASCAP, and CSAC, that collect licenses from any sort of business that might use music, including restaurants, radio stations, venues, any place that uses music. They will go out and collect a blanket license, and then through their mysterious math that none of us totally understand, they pay out royalties based on how much the songs that you're a part of are being played. And so it's we call it mailbox money. It's one of the great annuities. You spoke of annuity as royalties of a hit song is a great annuity.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like when you see the old comedies on TV that get rerun over and over and over, and those people are just cashing checks. Kind of every time that show is aired, they're getting paid something. So yeah, I've often wondered how that worked, because if I had a kid and he had a guitar and he says, "Hey, I'm going to Nashville, I'm going to make my mark," I often wondered, how much do they struggle, and how do they get paid, and that kind of thing. And I know live performance, hey, we'll sign you up for a Friday night gig, we're going to pay you, but it can't be a real steady income when you're first get down there.
Well, Nashville is the great example of the gig economy that everyone has sort of learned about a lot, over the last few years, particularly through COVID. And we started to understand, just how so many folks gig is tethered, or their job is tethered to a gig and not to sort of a static corporate position or something you could do from home or quickly recreate on Zoom or offline. The music business is one of those industries, I would say, similar to athletics, in that you have the very, very top tier that are one percenters. You have an enormous tier or tranche of wannabes, folks that would like to their vocation be to make their money in the music industry. And then you've got the middle, which hardly exists. There's mostly this and mostly this. And sort of the workaday middle class of the music business is one of the things that really did sort of get eviscerated by the digital economy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's interesting. Music has changed so much, you know, since I was in high school, and you'd run down the record store and buy an LP and read the album cover and all that. How has the digital revolution changed your industry?
Well, now everything is basically delivered streaming, and we know that because we're all listening to Spotify or Amazon Prime or Apple Music, and so really the entire concept of how that pie got cut up had to be sort of reinvented from scratch. And we've seen this happen more than once inside the music business, in particular, when radio really became a phenomenon and pushed what was originally sheet music or piano rolls out of the way. And then television came and the MTV generation came. How the deals are structured between the copyright owners, the middlemen, and then the broadcast companies is something that in the music business has had to be basically looked at almost from scratch several times just in the last 100 years. The latest digital revolution really upset the apple cart, a true disruption, and we're just now kind of finally figuring out kind of an equitable way, to slice up these new income streams.
Right, right. So another question, you mentioned something to us earlier about blue ocean strategies. Which one are active in your career path? I've never even heard of that. So can you speak a little bit about that?
Sure. Blue Ocean Strategies is a business book. It's one of my favorite books. I highly recommend to your listeners to get a copy of it and read it. It had a profound effect on me in a difficult industry that most people think is more about waking up in the middle of the night with an idea as opposed to a solid work ethic and sort of climbing the ladder that's in front of you. But the shorthand for a blue ocean strategy is to find a lane in your vertical where there's the least amount of competition. There's a blue ocean in front of you to be able to go and build some new paradigm. And that's one of the things that Song Sessions has done successfully over the last couple of decades. We have been out in front of the traditional music business doing things like taking our songwriter offerings into the corporate world as opposed to just record labels, creating shows and things in theaters. That is not a place that you would generally see a songwriter sort of working out, their gig. And so anyone who's looking, particularly in an entrepreneurial sort of vertical, A, read the book, and B, always be looking for the place that's tangent to what it is that you're doing, but is the window that has the least amount of density in competition, because you have a chance to kind of either be first to market or early to market and flex your shoulders a little bit in a lane that isn't already taken up by top heavy people that you're just always going to be second tier to.
Yeah, kind of the road less traveled, and the early bird gets the worm, right?
So all of the visual metaphors work.
So I know you have a latest project that's trying to keep you ahead of the curve in the industry, and I think you actually brought along a little 30-second video we can watch. Is that right?
Yeah, I did. It might inform the watchers just a little bit if we could play that. So how about giving that a run?
Sing it, sweet thing. I wanna kiss a girl. I wanna hold her tight. Maybe make a little magic, baby. To the Music City, Nashville, Tennessee.
This is a story about chasing dreams and finding true love.
Northern side.
That's pretty good stuff. So how did you come up with the idea of North and South Nashville?
Well, my wife, Anna Wilson, who's a wonderful artist and songwriter. We're one of those married couples that does the music business together 365 days a year and have for decades. Is from the north. She's from Chester Springs, Pennsylvania. And I am from just north of Atlanta. And so she made her pilgrimage south to get to Music City, Nashville. I made my pilgrimage north to get to Nashville, and that's where we not only found our careers, but found each other. And so it's a true story about chasing dreams and finding true love, and attacking a difficult industry in the home of where that industry resides. So we play ourselves in this musical that is a story about our lives, and it really is a blue ocean strategy. You do not see songwriters and producers, the kind of behind the scenes people that we are, taking the stage on a theater and telling their story. You generally see the people that we write for or work for out on tour doing their thing. So I wrote 8 #1 songs for Keith Urban, who's quite a well-known, country artist.
Sure.
And he'd be playing anywhere in the world to, 50,000 people while I'm sitting at home. So we've flipped the script a little bit, and we've actually created this vehicle to allow us to tell our story live to an audience on stage.
That's kind of interesting. That is truly a blue ocean idea. And Chester Springs, that's right up the road from me. I'm in Glen Mills, so that's not too far from us.
Yeah, Villa Maria Academy, go.
Well, let me ask you, how is the investment in the income streams of intellectual property, how does that affect like traditional exit strategies in your industry?
2 things have happened over the last decade. The first thing that happened was our wonderful lobbying group on behalf of songwriters, the Nashville Songwriters Association International, was able to get some legislation written and passed that allowed songwriters to sell their catalogs, their intellectual property, the songs that they write and have ownership in, the same way that you would sell a business. And so for many, many years, really up until just a few years ago, if you sold your catalog, you were taxed at ordinary income, just like it was income that you had got. We got that changed to where we are taxed at the capital gains rate that a business would sell. And that was a game changer for our entire industry. So not only did it give us deep tax advantages, it encouraged us to aggregate and put together these catalogs and sell them and the income stream that comes with those to third parties. And so now there's a tremendous industry of outside third-party investments that are coming in and buying with multiples based on the annual income that the royalties are creating, and they're investing and aggregating those income streams, and they're playing the time value of money game to own these things, and they're betting on A, holding something long enough, B, seeing songs repurposed. A song of mine might be put in a movie next week that generates a 6-figure income. And so people are waiting on those types of events. And then also just all boats rising as the tide rises. As we figure out how to get paid more and more through streaming, then the folks who are holding the copyrights will do well.
Well, I'll tell you, that's a big coup for you guys. You must have had a pretty good lobbyist somewhere in Washington to get that capital gains treatment.
We did, and as songwriters, we went there for years. I went multiple times, literally with a guitar on my back and walking into congressional offices and Senate offices and singing songs and saying, here we are down in Nashville, just trying to keep up with this digital revolution.
Yeah, that's great. So if you met a young person that was trying to enter the music business, either as a performer or as an artist, what advice would you give them today? It's definitely different than when you and your wife started in it. So
it's entirely different. My advice would be, and it doesn't change, and it hasn't changed for some time. 2 things. One of them is esoteric and one of them is super practical. The esoteric version of it is don't lose your joy for writing or performing because you feel like you are compelled to have to turn it into your living. There are lots of people who attempt to do that. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. And to watch someone whose heart and soul is to create music or to perform or play their guitar lose that simply because, you know, they attempted to get into a business vertical that didn't quite work out is always heartbreaking for us. And the other thing I say is move to a town where the industry exists. The world is flat for a lot of people on Zoom and a lot of folks who want to work outside of the office. That is not the case in the music business. It's still very centered. If you want to be in the movie industry, go to Hollywood. If you want to be a songwriter, come to Nashville, New York, Atlanta. If it's hip hop or R&B, they're still the places.
Yeah, it seems like it's a tough business to really get attraction of. But I agree with you. You have to be happy with what you're doing. Whenever it turns into a job, it's not fun. And we have a big sign in our office that says, if you love what you do, you'll never work another day in your life. So we kind of go by that motto. Are there any silos or verticals in your wealth plan that are not music centric?
We have been very active in the real estate market for the last 10 years or so, buying and selling homes, working our way up the real estate ladder, and have done really well, particularly hit some big licks during sort of the real estate run up in COVID. I'm on Zillow every single day. I'm always looking for an opportunity to repurpose the income that I get from the music business into something that is going to become an asset as opposed to just an income stream that I wind up spending.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess the higher interest rates, I talked about that a little bit earlier. That certainly slowed down the real estate market. And I was talking with some clients the other day about, you know, with these higher interest rates and higher mortgage rates, obviously it's still a seller's market because nobody's putting their house up for sale because they locked in at a 2.5% or 3% mortgage. And now they don't want to, you know, if they buy, they got to get in at 6.5%, 7%. And they don't want to do it. So it has slowed down the real estate industry. And I'm sure you felt that in Nashville as well.
We felt that everywhere. Right now, being a cash buyer obviously is king. You know, so you just avoid any conversations about the interest rates at all. And you try to find someone who's, you know, wanting to make a deal at a number and go on.
Yeah, it is kind of crazy. We still see up here anyway that you're still getting over ask price. You know, offers are coming in well over ask price. And you're right. If that's the case, cash is going to be the one they accept and not anybody that's got to qualify for a loan. So,
correct.
Well, Monty, I appreciate you being on with us today. I've learned a lot about the music industry, and I wish you well in your future endeavors.
Thanks. If go to northsouthnashville.com. It's northsouthnashville.com, and you'll hear a lot more about this musical that we're playing all summer in downtown Nashville. So if any of you folks get down here to Music City, USA, we would love to have you come and see one of our shows.
That'd be great. We appreciate it. And that wraps up this edition of Money Matters. Our next show, we're going to have a guest, Maria Maccaccini, CEO of Anavis Bio. And I'm sure she's going to have great information for us as well. So I want to wish everybody thanks for joining us today. And I want to wish you a great week. Take care.